Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dillon, I'm your host, and today, guys, we are going to be talking about breaking free from manual drafting drudgery. We're going to be talking about automation, how to help you and your team improve everything that you do, right? So I'm giving a few talks here in the next coming weeks. One for the Ceiling and Wall Association, I'll be in Nashville for that. And this podcast will probably air after that presentation. And then I'm doing another one at the Vertical Design Build Summit, also talking about AI automation. I've got a few other talks coming up this year, really going through the same things, right? How automation is helping you, your team, what you need to do, and how you're going to be able to get through it. You know, so many of these firms, so many of these guys are really just struggling through the pain of drafting. You know, for me, working in firms, working on, we did 1.5 million square feet of school projects a year. I did 100 million of healthcare in a year. Like, it's a lot of projects to do, a lot of things to get done. And with that, like I ended up working so much, like nights, weekends, the stress of getting some massive dollar value projects out, managing the teams for them, that, I ended up getting shingles. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any period of time, you guys know this, right? Like, I got shingles. It was right before vacation, supposed to be like a super nice vacation, right? Going to the beach, being in Hawaii for it. And I ended up just being miserable for an entire week that I was there. Supposed to be relaxing and Mai Tais and everything else, and was pretty painful to have to deal with that. And that's really the impetus of Kowabunga Studios and why it was created, is to automate this tedious and time-consuming drafting process that we all have to go through, right? The automating of light fixture placement, receptacle placement, switches, fire alarm devices, panels, auto circuiting that we've created. Like, all of that is meant to save time so that you're not up against the gun on all these deadlines, that you're able to leave at 5:00 and be okay with it, right? That everything is done, that you're not having to grind until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night just to get projects done, right? Because you don't have the help, which is where most firms are. They don't have help. They're not able to get these projects turned around. And because of that, they're getting held back, right? The firm is not able to grow. You can't onboard anybody because you don't have time to do it. Your leadership, and especially when you look at small engineering firms, right? From 10 to 20 to even 50 guys, like, you don't have the time to train the next guy. You barely have time to hire and interview and bring somebody on, see if they're qualified. Then you got to bring them on. Then you got to train them, right? We don't have time to train the next guy, to bring them up so they can take our spot, so we can go and do more things. And especially for firm owners, right? Going and doing business, meeting with clients, going to project update meetings, right? All the things that happen within a firm, you've got a lot to deal with. Firm ownership is, there's a ton going on: paperwork, insurance, contracts, proposals, all the things that you got to get done to make that project go. So when you and your team are basically drowning and just trying to get that next project out, it's going to be super hard to move forward. And with a lot of firms and a lot of teams, like, you're just not making the money that you want either. Like, your margins get cut and sliced on every project. You're trying to hire more people, which goes into overhead, and then they're not productive for the first, call it, month or two. And if it's like an intern or somebody that's fresh and green, they might not be super productive for the first, 3 to 6 months. And so, or they're like half productive, right? So whatever you're paying them, they're worth probably about half of that. But after that, they're going to be worth what you pay them. And then they'll probably be worth more than what you pay them, and you're getting a bargain on it, right? So the longer they're with you, the longer their tenure, the longer that they're working for you and your firm, the better off everybody's going to be. It's easier for them to come in and do their job. You're making more money on them. You have continuity with clients and them. So everything works out really well. But as you're trying to grow and scale your firm, like you have these continued burdens of payroll, and you're having, your senior guys do all these time consuming and tedious tasks because they're the only guys to do it. You haven't backfilled the next people in, or you're trying to run on interns and co-ops and you haven't filled enough slots with them because you don't have the time to go to the career fairs at the college or the local high school or what have you, to go and find those people to bring in, to then train them, to let them offset that senior engineer so they can do, higher level senior engineering stuff, versus just trying to lay out and get a set of drawings that are good enough to get out to the client. So all of this comes down to basically the systems and process that you have in place. And with a lot of these presentations that I'm doing, really there's a couple things. The software in and of itself is pretty simple and easy, right? Like you can see why I did it. Got shingles, up against a ton of deadlines. Nobody's getting projects out, working crazy nights and weekends. And like, I don't even know what happened after I left and who picked up the slack, from me leaving that job, getting out of that situation and going and starting, Kowabunga Studios out of it. So like, I don't even know what happened because again, you moved on, life, and the firm's got to take care of it. But all those guys, right, they just had a lot more work dumped on their plates. But this goes to, there's no pipeline, there's no training, there's hopes and prayers. I mean, if you look at most like electrical engineers, senior engineers, like those job postings are out there for probably no less than 3 months, more likely 6 months. And for a lot of them, they're probably going to take a year to fill those positions, which is just insane, right? Like you go a year, know you need somebody, and your team is having to pick up the slack for that person, and you're not distributing the salary of that person across the rest of the team. Like, so they're drowning in work. They're looking for an off ramp, and it just demoralizes like your entire team to be beat down for that long, right? Teams can go through short bursts of like, yeah, we got to work 50, 60, whatever hours this week, unless it's like your total culture and everybody loves being there, everybody's team players, and everybody's working that much. But if like the manager, if your CEO, if your executives are not in the office, if they're out playing golf or whatever, even some of it, if it's with clients, like that happens too. But, it sends this message of like, look, you don't have to be in the office. And so people, they have conflicting messages, right? Your executives, even though they're working for sure, or most of the time they're with clients, they're doing night meetings, they're doing all that kind of stuff, but they're not in the office. And your culture is trying to push these guys to do all this work. Like that somewhat sends a conflicting message. So when I am putting these presentations together, it's to try to relay the message of like, look, the software piece is pretty simple, right? Here it is, especially like ours. It's an Excel sheet. Like if you can read a spreadsheet, you can use the software. It's simple. The onboarding's pretty easy. Like I give an hour training and everybody pretty much understands it. It's not hard. And so purchasing it, using it, simple, right? Easy stuff. The hard thing is complete adoption, right? To remember to use it on your projects, to start up every project and run it, do all your layouts, and then move through, right? And so that's like the hard part in adoption. And then if you look at any other automation software, like it is that training piece of, hey, here's what to do, here's how to use it, and go through that with somebody. Again, ours is pretty straightforward. Like, do you want one receptacle per wall, 2, 3? Do you want one just 6 inches from the door? What's your foot candle level that you want for your lighting? Like it's pretty simple calculations and pretty easy, straightforward placement strategies that are built into our software. Like in an hour, you can very much understand how to use it, what to do, and how to move forward. The things that we look at that might be harder, stuff like Procore or submittal softwares, and what submittals look like. What does accepted look like or mean? What does, rejected mean? What does resubmit mean? And all the criteria that you need to put into like submittal logs and everything else that you're doing. So when we go through this, there's onboarding, training, implementation of software, but there's the culture behind it. And the people through this are always the most important thing. So while you can quickly and easily implement software, you use it, kind of like a ChatGPT, implementation is like, hey, here's all the criteria I want, go do it. I mean, that's what we've built for Kowabunga Studios. You can't, text into it, but it's, again, you're filling out a big Excel spreadsheet, pretty simple for every room in the project. But as you move through all of this and look at any type of software, any type of implementation, like you got to be focused on how are my people going to implement this? What do we want to see out of it? What's the vision for why we're doing this? And what are people going to get out of it, right? If they're automating something or putting AI into their workflows, some people might be worried about like their jobs, right? How are they going to continue to stay here? And so you've got to paint a picture that's big enough to fit everybody into, to say, hey, like, here's where we're going. Here's the projects that we're going after. Here's the things that we've proposed on. Here's the projects that we've won. Here's how we're going to use, these automation tools and AI to help advance the company, our careers, and everybody else that's working here, right? Here's all the things that we're going to do. And you need to have a big vision that's bold, that's, exciting, that wants to keep people working there, and also is able to attract it, right? For most firms, your recruitment strategy is hopefully your people know somebody, right? Like that's your recruitment. It's a referral recruitment strategy because you don't want to pay recruiting fees. You're not going to events. You're not paying to have a booth somewhere, and you don't have a training pipeline. So you're not hiring like new college grads. So for a lot of this is, if you're not going to fix your training, if you're not going to fix the rest of this, then you just got to give your people better tools so that they talk more positively about the firm, the environment, what's going on there, so that they attract more of their friends to come and work at the same firm. That's really what it comes down to, is things like that, because your guys can't continue to drown in red lines, revisions, in 60-hour weeks, never seeing their families, like missing soccer games. Like that's, and for the pay, you're not paying most of these guys 150, 200 grand a year, that it's worth it, right? They're just not making that type of money to where people would more willingly make that trade. So, and you're not paying them hourly for the most part. They're on salary. So working late nights and weekends, like they're not getting paid anymore to do it. So why would they, right? At the end of the day, we got to help the team so that they're able to do more in less time, get the job done, right? Do what you pay them for. But a lot of what you pay them for is to think, to be creative, to solve problems, and just placing that next light fixture or that receptacle in a model is not solving problems, right? It's creating drawings, which is your ultimate deliverable. But if you can automate that, like, why wouldn't you? And to do it for basically pennies on the dollar, in placing all these devices. AI should handle all that grunt work so that engineers can think, they can be creative, they can solve problems, not just click buttons in a Revit model. At the end of the day, you're paying them to be creative, to solve problems, and be that client's trusted advisor. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. And when you have them in front of clients more often, solving more problems, because all that drafting and layout is done where they just have to go coordinate it, make choices. It's a lot easier for them to do. And the last thing that I'll say is that a lot of the processes here, a lot of the deadlines that get set are completely arbitrary, right? They're not based off of what your, take your fee divided by your billable hour rate, number of hours. Let's say it's 10 weeks, right? 400 hours worth of work to be done. And then you say you can do it in 6. Well, you just shoved 10 weeks worth of work into a 6-pound bag, right? And so that is how a lot of these decisions get made. So the only way for somebody to effectively execute on that is to work, 1.5 times as much to do all that work in a 6-week time span. But if you automated it, half of that work, 5 weeks worth of work out of the 10 would be done in, an hour or so. And so the other 4 weeks and 4 days, you'd have to do the rest of it, right? So you can meet that 6-week timeline without too much difficulty because you automated the bulk of the layout, the bulk of the work, and allowed your people to do what they do best. And then you can go hunt, find more work, and not be worried about whether your team's going to be able to execute it or not. Because at the end of the day, that's so many people have lost more projects and saying that they can't execute the work. They didn't make hay when the sun was shining, right? When there's a ton of projects, a ton of work, a ton of opportunity out there, you said no to it instead of figuring out how you can do it. You just said no and rejected all that revenue. So for construction, for architects, engineers, you've got to be able to say yes to all those projects to basically get that revenue while you can, and then figure it out later. But if you're using automation tools to do it, your job just got one heck of a lot easier to figure out, how to get it done. Because again, it's automated. 80% of the work's done or half the work's done. And then you don't have to worry about payroll. And then with our token system from Kowabunga, you're only paying for what you use, right? If that software sits on the shelf and you never use it, you're not paying anything for it until you actually implement it and use the project or use our software. So I can't say that for every software tool out there, but what I can say is that, we flipped our entire model to help you guys be able to take advantage of automation, only pay for what you use, and help you guys be more productive. So at the end of the day, automation is going to help you through a lot of this. It's going to help you to save time, improve your margins, improve your productivity, and hopefully make your people, so long as you have the culture to back it up, make your people a heck of a lot happier working for you. So with that, guys, that's this episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. Until next time.